Hi everyone, I wanted to give you a video on vertical adult development. Now, the classic thing here is everybody gets given the 7 transformations of leadership, the Harvard Business Review article from 2005. It is a classic article, it is quite long, and I've developed a metaphor I think really helps people understand what the article really means for them. And I'd like to share that with you before you look at the article or remind yourself of that article. What we mean by vertical development is best to look at the original developmental psychology by Jean Piaget that he did with children. And he pretty much reckoned that you got to 18 years old and that was it, it was over. But clearly that isn't the case, you keep on developing. And what he was talking about are things like conservation of volume. Well, up to a certain age, a child will look at 100 milliliters of water in a tall, skinny beaker or a flat dish, and they'll think it's the higher one that's more, because they relate height to more. And then about 9 years old, they reckon, that's the same volume. So they're able to conserve volume. You can see distinct step changes in the perspectives that children are able to take, and they're capable of doing more. Now, the same thing happens as you grow as an adult, and you may end up having jobs that have a certain shape of mind that you need to be able to do that job. And if you're not there yet, you're not really going to be capable of doing it. Now, just because someone has later stage perspectives, it doesn't mean they're a better person. It just means they're more capable. So, for example, a really tiny child might look down from a skyscraper and see people down there and go, they are ants. Whereas an older child will look down and say, oh, look at those people, they look like ants. Now, that older child isn't a better individual than the younger one. They're just later stage in their perspectives, and you get the same thing as you go through organizations. And there's nothing wrong with people stopping at a certain stage and developing horizontally. So what we mean by horizontal development is you're not moving stages of vertical development, and you can stay in a stage for the whole of your life or for years or decades. But what we mean by horizontal development are skills training. So I can learn the skill of delegation, for example. I can go on a course, but I may not want to do it because I haven't changed who I am yet. So vertical development is about being able to get new perspectives and new attitudes and be able to see different things. So the metaphor that I think really helps here is that of a mountain. So when you're very young, if you remember what kids are like, the whole world is them. Everything exists for them. So they're on their own. So you can think of a dense vegetation, they can't actually see anybody else. But as they explore, the vegetation spreads out a bit and they start to see other people. So the idea is, the metaphor is, you progress up a mountain, and as you go up the mountain, the vegetation gets sparser, gets more spaced out, and you're able to see longer distances in both space and time. But what we need at the top of organizations are people who can see a very long distance in both space and time. The trouble is there aren't very many people at that later stage of development. It can get very lonely. But I think the other thing that this metaphor helps with is each level that you go up, and people exist over about 3 or 4 levels. It's not a single level. You start maybe exploring a little bit of the mountain, then come back down, and you might feel comfortable here, and you go up again. But what happens at each level is you learn a new language, a new set of perspectives. And one of the challenges leaders have when they can have these later stage perspectives is they don't translate to the same language of their employees. So I may, at a lower level of development or a standard level of development, which the language in the article may say expert or achiever, I may use a certain type of language. But if I get to a later stage, what's known as post-conventional stage of development, those people will not get my perspective. I need to adapt my language. So it's like at the lower levels, I'm sorry to use that lower or higher, but it just works for the metaphor. At lower levels, you might be speaking a very common language like English or Spanish. But when you get to one of the higher levels, you may end up speaking something like Swahili. You understand it, other people at your level understand it, but people at Expert and Achiever do not because they're speaking English and Spanish. One of the real challenges we have as leaders at late stages of development is to bring everybody with us, but they may not understand our perspective. So we need to be aware of vertical development because it's only by developing vertically that we're able to take on much bigger challenges and know that the people we're taking with us may not be able to see the perspectives that we see. So I hope this video really helps people comprehend what we mean by vertical development. It is a change in perspective, it's a change in capability. It's not a better person or a worse person. There's nothing wrong. In fact, we really encourage lots of horizontal development because as you develop horizontally, it means you're very stable, you're able to do more. But for certain challenges, we need to lift people's perspective. And I will make that concrete for you. For example, perspective adeptness is a deliberately developmental practice. How adept am I at taking different perspectives? So I may use an exercise like polarity mapping as an exercise which will really lift people's ability to take different perspectives. So that's what we might mean by deliberately developmental coaching, using practices that allow people to lift themselves vertically as well as expanding horizontally. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it actually means something to you and it helps you in really ingesting this article and being able to use any developmental coaching in your business. If you have any questions, please do get in contact. It can be a complex subject full of lots of jargon, but it's really fundamental to how we succeed in a real VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. That's where we need more vertical development and not so much of the horizontal. Thanks, and bye-bye for now.